Jain friends, myself Sachin Jain, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, AKGEC Engineering College. In the series of lectures of web technology, today's topic is session management and session handling in Java. So this one is the outline of the lecture. What is session management? We will discuss different tracking techniques of session we will discuss in this lecture. We know that HTTP is a stateless protocol and it provides no intrinsic way to associate one request and response transaction with a subsequent transaction between the client and the server. And web application require the server engage in a non-trivial dialogue with a single user involving multiple client request and server responses. So there is a problem to find the way to define and keep track the particular session between the browser and web server. So when client interact with the server, and when server respond to the client, the time duration between is called as a session, and we need to maintain or we need to keep the track between these transactions between client and the server, and this concept is known as a session tracking. Session simply means a particular interval of a time, and each time user request to the server and server treat the request as a new request. So we need to maintain the state of a user to recognize a particular user. So there is a session and we need to track those sessions that is in between client request and server response. So let's understand with an example. There is a client, there is a server. Client request to the server and each request is treated as a new request and it goes from client to the server. Server then respond based on the request and this response goes to the client from the server. And if client again requests, it is treated as a new request, right? So this one also the new request, this one is also the new request. Now, how we will track the session? There are multiple ways to tracking the session between client request and server response. So there are two methods that we will discuss in this lecture. That is cookies and HTTP session interface. There are two methods through which we can track the session between the transactions. Now, what is cookie? Cookie is a small piece of information that persists between the multiple client requests. So when a client requests, this information is saved in a file and that file is known as a cookie. So we can say cookie has a name, cookie has a value and other optional attributes like comments, path, domain qualifiers, maximum age and a version number of the cookie. What is cookie? Cookie is a small file which have these type of information and stored on a client machine. How cookie works? By default, each request is considered as a new request. And cookies technique, we add the cookie with response from the servlet. So when servlet will respond, we will add the cookie, right? So cookie is stored in the cache of the browser, and after if request is sent to the user, then this cookie is added with the request by default, and it is saved on the client machine. So we can recognize the user, whether it is new one or whether it is old, using the cookie. Now there are two types of cookie files that can be saved. One is non-persistent cookie, second one is persistent cookie. Non-persistent, as its name says, that it is valid for a single session only, and it is removed. It have no storage. Each time when session get closed or when browser get closed. Persistent cookie, it is valid for multiple session, and it is not removed each time when the browser get closed by the user. So it remains in the storage. It doesn't remain in storage after closing the browser. Now, what is the advantage of cookie? It maintains the state of the user. It is maintained at the client side. So these are the two advantages. We can maintain the state of the user, and we can store this file on the client side. So client can see this cookie file on your system. Disadvantage of cookie: it will not work if cookie is disabled from the browser. If browser have an option to enable or disable the cookie, if browser is cookie is disabled from the browser side, it will not work. And second one is, only textual information can be set in a cookie object. So no graphical information or no other information can be saved in the cookie. Only textual information can be saved inside the cookie. So these are the two disadvantages of using the cookie. Now, how cookie will be created, how it will be saved. So there is a class name as a cookie. Here C is in capital. And this class comes from this package javex.servlet.http.cookie. Here C is in capital letter. Class that provides the functionality of using the cookie. It provides a lot of useful methods for the cookie. So all the methods related to the cookie is written inside this cookie class, and this cookie class definition come from this package. So there are two constructors of this cookie class. As we know that constructor have the same name as its class name. So this one is the constructor. Here no argument. This one is the constructor. There are two arguments. So constructor, it will construct the cookie. It constructs a cookie with a specified name and value. So name and value argument can be passed to the parameterized constructor. It is default constructor. Now another method that are written inside this cookie is set max age method, get name method, get value method, set name method, and set value method. So these are the methods that are written inside this cookie class. So what is set max age method does? Set max age of the cookie in a seconds. So this one will set the age of the cookie in the seconds. It returns the name of the cookie. So get name method will return the name of the cookie. It will return the cookie. Get value will return the cookie. Set name will change the name of the cookie, and set value will change the value of the cookie. So these are the 5 different methods that are written inside this cookie class. Other method that are written inside this cookie class is add cookie and cookie with this array, right? So these are the 2 methods that is also used. So this method is of HTTP servlet response interface is used to add cookie in response object. So this method will be called through the response object of the HTTP servlet response class, and cookie get cookies method of HTTP request interface is used to return all the cookies from the browser. So these are the 2 additional methods that can be used when we are writing a program for the cookie. Now, how cookie can be created? So to create the cookie, we need to create the object of the class cookie, and here in this way we can set the object of the cookie class, and we can pass 2 arguments, that is the name and value of the cookie. And we can add this cookie by the object of HTTP servlet response class, response object, response.add cookie, and you will pass this object here inside the add cookie method. We can delete the cookie as well. To delete the value of the cookies, we need to call cookie. This one is the object of the cookie, new cookie, then name of the cookie, and if there is some value, then we will pass here. And we can set the maximum age to the 0. So set max age method we will call through the object of this cookie class, and we will pass the value 0 is in second. In this way we can delete the cookie. How to get the cookie? If you want to access the values of the cookie, then we need to have a cookie class, then its object. There are many cookie, so we will take the values inside the array, then we will fetch the cookie request.get cookies, then we will use the for loop, and then we will access the value of each cookie by catching the name and value of the cookie. In this way we can access the value of the cookie. Here I am accessing the 2 value, that is name of the cookie and value of the cookie, and I'm just printing this one. Now, to understand how cookie works, we will have 3 files. One is index.html, second first servlet.java, second servlet.java. So we need 3 files, right? So let's understand what is index.html. So I am writing a form here, and the action is servlet1. So this one, the form action is servlet1. So we will go to the servlet1 program, and the method is post. I am writing the 2 I'm writing a text box. Input type equals to text and name is username, and input type equals to submit. I'm creating the submit button with value go. So when we will click the submit, then action will goes to the servlet1. Now what is servlet1? Here I'm writing the first servlet program just to set the value of the cookie. Here I will take 3 package. One is import java.io, javx.servlet, javx.servlet.http. So this one is our first program. So I am writing a class name with the first servlet. I am extending the HTTP servlet. This HTTP servlet definition will come from this package, this one. And I'm writing the method do post. I'm passing the 2 object, HTTP servlet request object request, HTTP servlet response object response. I'm setting the content. This one is the optional value. You can set response dot set content type text oblique HTML. I'm writing a printer writer. Printer writer class will come from this package. I'm writing and creating the object out. Out will be called through the response dot get writer method. Now a string, there is a string class, the name is n, and I'm calling this get parameter using the object of request, and request is an object of HTTP servlet request class. Right, I'm just printing welcome. Now main part start from here. This one is the portion of the servlet. So to create the cookie, we need to have a cookie class, then object of the cookie, new keyword, cookie constructor, and there are two value, name and value. The name is uname and name is value is n. So in this way we can create the cookie, and I'm just adding this cookie by the object of this one, HTTP servlet response object dot add cookie, as I told you how to add the cookie inside the program. So this one is the line that will add the cookie, and in this way we can go to the form action servlet 2 by clicking the submit button. If there is some exception, we can catch this exception and we can print that exception. So this one is the important part through which we can add the cookie. Now, what is servlet? Second program. This program is same as we have done in the last program. Now, we are accessing the value of the cookie. So we will call this method, object with the array type request.getCookies, and I'm accessing the value hello plus name. This one is the name, this one is the value. So in this way we can access the value of that cookie. So first program is to create the value, second program is to access the value. Now, second type of method to access the value of the session is HTTP session interface. So HTTP session interface is what? It is a container that creates a session ID for each user. So when a transaction will go from client to the server, then session ID will be created for each session for each user. The container will use this ID to identify the particular user. So about the user will be identified with the session ID. So session interface, what does? It creates the ID for a particular session of particular user just to track the session. It is an object of HTTP session that can be used to perform the two tasks. One is it binds the object. Second, it view and manipulate the information about the session, such as session identifier, creation time of the session, and last access time. So in this interface, we can do session interface, we can do these things as well. Right. So how HTTP session interface works? When a client request, this request goes to this container, and container will create the session ID corresponding to this particular user session. Right. So, and if another user request, then this request goes to the container, and this container again will create a unique session ID for this user. So each user have its unique session ID, which is used to access, just to know about the session for a particular user. Now, how HTTP session object can be created? So HTTP session object can be created using HTTP session get session method, and this method returns the current session associated with the particular request, and if request doesn't have a session, it will create it, right? So the session object can be created with this method. There is another method that can be used to create the session, but there is some argument, boolean create. It will return the current session associated with the request, or if there is no current session, it will create it and set the value true, and it will return a new session. So both the methods can be used to create the session. If there is no session, then it will create. So first time there will be no session ID, then it will create. And there is no argument, there is argument this one. There are some methods which will help to track the session. One is public static get ID, get creation time, get last access time, invalid date. So these are the four methods that can be helpful for creating the session ID for a particular user. So we will discuss in the example. Now again we will have 3 files. I'm just creating with this with the same like we does it with the cookie example. We will create a form. We will set the action servlet 1. The name info, we are creating the text box, name, username, and just creating the submit button. So in this way we are creating the text box, here creating the submit button, and the value is go. Now firstly we will import this package java.io, then javix.servlet package, javix.servlet.http package. For example, I'm giving the name of my class first servlet, and it is extending the HTTP servlet. HTTP servlet is coming from this package. Here I'm using the method doGet method. I'm passing 2 arguments inside this package is HTTP servlet request object is request, HTTP servlet response object is response. And this program is same as we does with the previous one. Now the change is here, HTTP session, and the session is an object through which we can create the session, and we will call the get session method with the object of this request. So when client requests, then its object name as a request is created through this class, and this session can be created with the object of this request. If we want to set some attribute, the set attribute method can be called with the object of this one, session.setAttribute. And if we will want to print something, then out.print. Out is an object that comes from this one. Now what servlet second does, the program is same. Servlets HTTP servlet session we will create with the object of request.getSession false. We can pass the argument, then we will take the string n, and we will fetch the attribute of the session get attribute with the particular unit, and then we will print this value of n here with some string that we want to add. In this way we can fetch the value of the session. So in this way we can track the session. Thank you. So in this lecture we discuss the 2 types of method of session tracking, one from cookie, second one is from HTTP session interface. Okay, thank you.